Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time it's a compilation of the 25 Objects of Desire YouTube shorts that I've been putting up throughout the month of December 2022. So this is all 25, all put together for your convenience in one simple video, which I hope you're going to enjoy. So sit back, relax, and take a look at a lot of things that you've not seen before on my channel. So today's object of desire is the original Palitoy Death Star. Now, back in Christmas 1978, I was a young 8-year-old boy, and when I was given this on Christmas Day, I literally couldn't believe it. I think it's an absolutely fantastic playset. It's a masterpiece of toy design, and it is still one of the all-time highlights of my vintage Star Wars collection. It is just superb. I do not think this has ever been matched. It's just the greatest playset that's ever been made, and that's all there is to it. The vintage Star Wars Death Star from Palitoy. Fantastic. Definitely an object of desire. Today's object of desire is Matter, the original hardback first edition by Ian M. Banks. Now, what's so special about this? Well, at the time I was buying books for a national book chain, and I was on their sort of science fiction panel, and I was able to get a personal signed copy by Ian Banks, and we also hosted him for an event which was fantastic. We did a whiskey tasting, and then he took us all out for a meal afterwards. It was truly a memorable event, and an author who is very sadly missed today. Fantastic. I love Ian Banks, and this was a real special book in my collection. Today's object of desire is my set of the first 3 Doctors' autographs. So William Hartnell, sadly, he passed away in 1975. I never actually got to meet him, but Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee, I first met both of these actors at the Longleat celebration in 1983, and then subsequently I met both of them again in conventions later on. John Pertwee multiple times, in actual fact, during the late 1980s. Very, very nice people to meet. Fantastic to actually get their signatures on postcards and also in my autograph book. Great memories of these fantastic actors, and I love having them displayed like this. Today's object of desire is the original American printing of Casino Royale by Ian Fleming, the very first James Bond novel. Now, over in the States, Casino Royale, they didn't really fancy that title, so like a lot of books over there, it got retitled as You Asked For It. And even on the back, although they mention Bond, they call him Jimmy Bond, not actually James Bond. This is a very, very rare popular library paperback, super scarce in the UK especially, and goes for several £100s, so definitely an object of desire. Today's object of desire is the original Boba Fett action figure. So this figure, when it was released, was an instant hit. It was so well designed, the figure was so cool, he was pretty cool in the movies, and I always had a soft spot for this figure, and I'm not alone. He's perhaps the most collectible figure in the entire vintage Star Wars range. Now, I was lucky enough to meet Jeremy Bulloch, the actor who played Boba Fett in Empire and Jedi, numerous times over the years when he did the shows, and I got quite a few bits signed by him, but nothing surpasses this original action figure, which I got him to sign back in the 80s and 90s. It's beautiful, it's one of my all-time most treasured pieces, and definitely an object of desire. So today's object of desire is my signed picture disc of Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds. So when The War of the Worlds came out, I think about 1978, I was absolutely gobsmacked by it. I couldn't stop playing it. It was superb, and even today it still is a really classic and almost iconic album. I just love it. So the chance to actually meet Jeff in 2005 at a show, well, it was something quite special. I took along this picture disc, and he graciously signed it. He personalised it as well, and it's one of my all-time favourite pieces in my collection. Definitely an object of desire. So today's object of desire is this piece of original artwork. Now, it's by artist Brian Talbot, and it was published in the first ever Hellblazer annual by DC Comics back in September 1989. Now, it's a really great page. It shows Constantine looking at one of his old mates and going through his old video cassette collection. And then at the end, the two of them are about to jump into a London taxi. It's a really, really great page. I think it sums up the John Constantine character quite well, and it's by one of my all-time favourite artists. Definitely a piece that is part of my objects of desire. So today's objects of desire are these Man from U.N.C.L.E. paperbacks, and they've been signed by actor Robert Vaughan. So Robert Vaughan was over for a week in about 96, 97, and we knew the chap who was bringing him over, and he appeared on the breakfast show, The Big Breakfast, on Channel 4. So we supplied The Big Breakfast with a big box of Man from Uncle memorabilia, and then throughout the next week, Robert Vaughan was doing some talks, and the chap who brought him over, thankfully, got Robert Vaughan to sign all our collections, which was fantastic. So I ended up with quite a bit signed by that great actor. Certainly one of my objects of desire. So today's object of desire is John Burke's original contract to be commissioned by Pan Books to write an adaptation of the Alan Owen film The Beatles in a Hard Day's Night. How amazing is this? This is the original contract signed by John Burke, and here's the finished book that was published back in 1964. It's a unique piece of Beatles memorabilia, and I'm absolutely delighted to have it as part of my vintage paperback collection. So that is today's object of desire. Today's object of desire are these two vintage Pan shop display stands. So these turned up in the early 90s, and they were found in a bookshop which had a back room which was full up with vintage from the late 50s, early 1960s shop promotional display things like standees, posters, book crowns, cover proofs, that sort of thing. I was lucky enough to get these two, and they're very scarce. I've seen other collectors with the 60s one, the film one, but the 50s one, I've never seen another one. I think it is particularly rare and definitely an object of desire. So today's object of desire is a very rare edition of the very first Penguin book. So most collectors are familiar with Penguin #1, Ariel by Andre Moros, in the familiar blue biography colours. It was re-released in 1985 for Penguin's 50th anniversary. Few collectors, however, have seen this, which is a test or an advanced proof copy of the very first Penguin in rather familiar crime colours, even though it was a biography. Now, estimates say about 200 of these were ever printed, and only a handful are known to exist today. I think this is perhaps the rarest of all vintage Penguin books, and definitely an object of desire. So today's object of desire is this vintage Pan book, The Man Who Finally Died by John Burt. Now what's so special about this? It's not in the greatest of condition, but this is a film tie-in, and the film itself starred Peter Cushing and Stanley Baker. Now, I was always a massive fan of Peter Cushing ever since the days of him being in the Doctor Who movies in the 1960s, and of course all those famous Hammer movies, and of course Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars. And back in 1990, at that point, Peter Cushing was in a nursing home, an actor's nursing home, and I wrote off to him. I sent off a little parcel of stuff, and it included this book, and he graciously was able to sign it there. And may all God's blessings be with you always. Peter Cushing, 1990. How fantastic is that? Definitely a prized item and one of my objects of desire. So today's object of desire is the original 1973 Radio Times Doctor Who Anniversary Special. Now this is incredible. It's one of the best Doctor Who magazines that's ever been produced. It's got an original Dalek story by Terry Nation. It's got plans on how to build your own Dalek, but I really remember it and love it for the amazing photographs that were staged with a lot of the older companions specifically for this magazine. It's got an incredible wraparound cover here with John Pertwee on. Just superb. It's by far one of the greatest bits of Doctor Who memorabilia ever produced, and definitely an object of desire. Today's object of desire is this set of original Inkworks signed Simpsons trading cards from the year 2000. So it's got all the main cast on there, and each card was individually signed. Very scarce today. I was amazed at how much these are actually selling for now. £200 to £300 a card, and graded ones even $400 or $500, which is crazy considering how common they actually were back in the day. Admittedly, that was now over 20 years ago, but I got my set framed up, including the redemption card, and I absolutely love them. A superb object of desire and a great way to celebrate this superb animated show. So a bit of a Christmas tradition ever since I was a boy was receiving on Boxing Day the Giles Annual, which is published to this day every single year. Now this is the very first Giles Annual. It was published in 1946, and it encompasses all of Giles's cartoons from 1942 to 1945. Published by the Daily Express, this first annual is quite scarce these days, although copies don't tend to go for more than 100, even in absolutely tip-top condition. It's a really great album. Now it was re-released about 10 years ago by Pedigree Books as a facsimile, and this is far easier to get hold of, about £10 to £15, and it's a great way to enjoy what is a particularly rare book. And if you love old satirical cartoons, Jules is hard to beat. Certainly an object of desire. Today's object of desire is this original Topps Ireland display box for the very first series of vintage Star Wars cards. Now these came out in 1977. These had the blue border, and as you can see, they cost just 5p for a packet, and that included the bubble gum as well. Now these shop display boxes, far rarer for the UK one than the USA one, and they don't turn up very often. I just love this. It's packed with nostalgia. These would have been the very boxes that I pulled my packets out of when I was a kid, and it's just superb. It brings back so many memories, and I love it. Definitely an object of desire. Today's object of desire is this superb piece of original DC artwork from Swamp Thing Annual number 5, published back in July-August 1989. Now, the script was written by Neil Gaiman, and the artwork is by Richard Piers Rayner, and it features Swamp Thing's supporting character, the old hippie Chester, rooting through his old vintage toy and record collection looking for some old memorabilia. It's a superb page. I really love it, and I'm definitely glad to have it as part of my collection. Certainly an object of desire. So today's object of desire is this set of Beatles autographs, once belonging to Gladys Hughes. Now Gladys Hughes was a factory worker in Wales, but she was also an avid autograph collector, and anytime any sort of band or celebrity or film star went into Wales near where she lived, she would track them down and get their autograph book. Now she actually met the Beatles twice and got their signature 3 times, and this is one of those from her autograph book. It's absolutely a fantastic item. I got it framed up with this picture here, and it's definitely one of my objects of desire. Today's object of desire is this amazing Darth Vader head. Now this plastic head was released in Japan back in 1995 for the release of the Star Wars trilogy on original Laserdisc. Now it's a fantastic item, and I managed to get mine signed by the actor Dave Prowse all those years ago. It's a fantastic piece, a real brilliant display item, and definitely an object of desire. Today's object of desire is this original Colditz Escape Kit. Now this is undated, but my suspicion is 74, 75 on the back of the TV series, and it was released by Parker Brothers. Now this kit is absolutely amazing. This one is sealed, and it contains a map, compass, typewriter, pantograph, hat, duplicator, forged documents, and a coded message. The set was put together by Pat Reed, one of the original Colditz escapees during the Second World War. It is an incredible item. Definitely one of my objects of desire. Today's object of desire is The Penguin Story, released in 1956 for Penguin's 21st birthday. It's a fantastic book looking at the history of Penguin. Collectors love it because it's got a full checklist of all the titles, and like me, I used to use this as a checklist for all the ones that I had and which ones I was after. I loved it so much, I got multiple copies of it. Every time I found one, I couldn't turn it down. So I got multiple copies of it, but none better than this one, which is the one that came directly from West Drayton, which is Penguin HQ. It came in a die-cut mail order sleeve. It's an absolutely mint copy of it. Beautiful example. And it comes with a very rare Penguin's Come of Age compliment slip direct from Sir Alan. Fantastic. I love it. Definitely one of my objects of desire. Today's object of desire is the original British Rubik Cube as released by Ideal. Now the original ones came in this container here. They should have a little Rubik logo on the middle of the white centre square there. Have a little leaflet there, and have the top, of course. Now I was a massive fan of these when they came out, and I bought all the different sorts of variations. This was the calendar one. Obviously later on they did the 4x4 and the 5x5s. There were so many spin-offs, and I did get fairly good at finishing the cube, so I'll give it a go here live on air. And I suppose once you got the hang of it and you got to read all the books, you remembered the moves, and you were able to sort of complete the cube without even looking at it, which is what we've done here today. Definitely an object of desire. Today's object of desire is this superb, fully signed Star Trek colour photograph here. So over the years I was lucky enough to get to meet several of the original Star Trek cast. Jimmy Doohan I met over in New York, actually, in a convention in the early 2000s, and William Shatner I met just recently, in actual fact, at the NEC. Walter Koenig was another one I met a few years back in the 90s, in actual fact, when I got this, at a Star Trek convention in Wales, I believe. But a really, really great item. I must get round to getting this one framed up because it's so fantastic and, well, quite a cherished item these days. So certainly one of my objects of desire. Today's object of desire is this incredible original pan cover artwork by Hans Helwig for The Bomb in the Attic. Now this was published in 1964 and it's typical of the artist's work with a little detailed character study which was used on the front jacket. Now I don't have a lot of original cover artwork, but I'm extremely pleased to have this particular piece as part of my vintage pan book collection. Definitely one of my objects of desire. So the final objects of desire is this set of 3 hardbacks by Richard Osman, and they form the Thursday Murder Club trilogy. Now, this is a fantastic set of books which have been recently picked up for option by Steven Spielberg to make into a movie, and they're just a fun read. Now, this is the first 3 in hardback. They've all been signed and numbered by Richard Osman, and I believe now is the time to grab these if you're at all interested, because I think they make fantastic investments and their price is surely going to rise. Definitely fantastic, good fun to collect, brilliant books, perfect objects of desire. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that little look through my 25 objects of desire. Hopefully a few things there that you found quite interesting. Now I am up for ideas for future little projects throughout the year, similar lines to the Objects of Desire series. So if you've got any suggestions, do please put them in the comments down below. Thanks very much for watching today, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.